Scrappers, Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. Right off the bat, we're going to ask you a very important question today. Tomorrow being April 1st, also known as April Fool's Day, do you celebrate? Yes or no? If you do, let us know some of the fun stories that you've done over the years. If they involve scrap, we really want to know that. But as always, Wednesday afternoons at 1 p.m. Eastern, we like to do our live updates. If you have any questions during these live updates, you're always welcome to ask us. Post the questions below. If we get to them during our live broadcast here, fantastic. If we don't, we'll always get those answers to you over the upcoming days. Now, like always, Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we send our updates out. But if you're looking for more scrap information, you could become a Patreon supporter today. For 26 cents a day, sometimes less, and then there's a few other options for more. You can get one-on-one coaching, you can get additional market tips, and during the different levels, the more you pay, the more that you're going to get, so we can help you make more money with your scrap. Now, over the last week, we've been watching the markets, and what we're going to try to do moving forward is change things up from week to week, from month to month, to give you a little more information. Yes, a micro point of view would be looking at the copper market and saying, what did it do over the last week? Well, the markets are relatively unchanged over the last week, but we did see two crazy days happening last Thursday and Friday. So the market dropped about 11 cents on Thursday, only to rebound 9 cents on Friday. These are the market swings that we've talked about for years that we dislike. They cause disruption, they upset the supply chain for scrap yards, and they make it so it's difficult to price things out correctly because you don't know when another price swing is going to take place. Now, when we watch these copper markets and we report not only the reported prices, but we see the national averages like you can see behind me, we try to look at all of these different factors and have them in there, so during our weekly reports, we give you a little more information than normal. Now, on a micro point of view, we would be looking at copper prices from day to day. What we're going to try to do is look at some of the macro point of views, or the big point of views, right, for the year, to see what's going on and how things are going to affect others moving forward. An example. Of course, we could talk about the different stimuluses, but let's talk about infrastructure. Here we are talking about an infrastructure bill that could be announced today by President Biden and have a $2 trillion price tag on it. Who cares about the price tag, because at this point it's imaginary money, but let's just talk about what and how it's going to affect you, the scrapper, over the rest of 2021. Now, copper-wise, it's probably not going to have a real heavy impact, but if you were a Patreon supporter, you would be able to find out some of our other ideas and tips that we talk about for the markets during the week through some of the additional tips. Now, we're not going to hide all of these different things from you, as we like to talk about things, because we like to help you make more money with your scrap. So looking at this on a macro point of view for the rest of 2021, we're going to be looking at these steel prices. We're going to be looking at some of these nickel prices for stainless steel, knowing that not only are thousands of bridges and roads going to be worked on, they're going to need metal for those. Now, earlier today, I was at a customer's warehouse who produces different pieces that go onto the bridges throughout the country. He was telling me that one of the biggest problems that he's having right now is finding American-made steel in less than 4 to 6 week delivery time. Now, many of you aren't on the manufacturing side of things, but you might be getting scrap from manufacturers, or you own a machine shop or work in a machine shop that produces scrap, and you're going to want to learn more about the process. Well, we're looking at what the United States is going to do when they start to put these bids out for the roads and the bridges. Are they going to require U.S. labor? Are they going to open it up to the world, letting outside companies from Canada, Mexico, or Europe bid on these projects but use American labor? If they open it up to the world, does that mean that the steel or metals that are going to be involved are going to come from only the United States, certified throughout the United States, or is it going to get imported? All of these questions are different things that have a real effect on the scrap pricing and the scrap market. The more steel that needs to be produced and made here in the United States, well, that could lead to higher price surge, where some of the higher quality steel that is currently getting exported overseas could be repatriated and kept here in the country. Now that would be a good thing for scrap yards, for scrappers, for steel mills, and then for the different manufacturers that are going to make the parts that are going to replace multiple pieces throughout the country. Now, when we look at all of these things, it's not only the steel and the nickel market that we look at, but it's the aluminum market too, as many road signs are built with American-made aluminum. Now, with the different aluminum grades, a lot of these have been imported from overseas, even if it is part of the USMCA agreement coming from Canada or Mexico. For this potential infrastructure, you have a lot of factors that we like to look at, and by becoming a Patreon supporter, we're going to help you look and dive into those a little deeper so you know where the markets are going. Now, I want to be interesting because there is going to be a massive demand for copper in the upcoming months and years, especially as, believe it or not, we talked about it before, the electric vehicle market continues to grow. Issues that we're going to have: how much copper is going to be needed? When is it going to be needed? How long is it going to be needed for? How much is going to be needed? These are all major questions that we look at and ask when we research what the markets are doing. Because not only do we own a scrap yard, but we like to talk about scrappers. But it looks like we have a question we're going to answer now.
Hi, so Sean asked, is shred going to climb? My yard yesterday dropped $1 per 100 pounds.
Okay.
Wasn't sure if that was just a quick dip.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sean. I think that shred prices are going to kind of level out. What we saw going into the month of March was a little bit of a decline of $20 to $30 a ton. Certain markets, it went up to $40 a ton. So that $1 per 100 drop that you talked about is about $22 a ton. So that kind of aligns itself with where the market declines are. But what we've read, talked about, and heard going into the month of April, this is no joke, we don't see much of a movement coming in the steel market into April. Now, we still think that these prices are very strong for steel prices, even after the declines that we saw. Overall, for 2021, we're kind of even on the steel side of things, but that really nice increase that we saw in the fourth quarter, that helped pick up the prices overall. Sean, thank you for the comment. Now, when we look at some of these other markets, we look at not only infrastructure, outside communications, where the metal is going, how the metal is being used, and more importantly, who is buying the metal. Is the metal staying here in the country? Is the metal getting exported to third world countries such as India or Turkey that are starting to build their infrastructures up? Where's the metal going? Follow the different shipping containers. We could talk about that Suez Canal thing, having thousands of shipping containers stuck on a boat the size of the Empire State Building for a few days. And you might say, Tom, is that going to disrupt the metal market? Or the price is going to change? No, they're not. I mean, they might maybe a little bit for a hot second. Fuel prices are going to have a heck of a lot of a bigger impact from that event happening than metal prices will. But those things are microcosms that happen for a finite period of time, 5, 6, 7 days. And when those things happen, it disrupts the market, but it's not a market upsetter. Example, COVID. When COVID hit, it upset the market. When a boat got stuck, it didn't upset the market. It might have slightly changed oil demand, where 10% of the oil goes through the Suez Canal, but that's not going to really disrupt the market because we know the oil's there. It's in the boats waiting to go through. We know the metal that could have been moving through is in the boats waiting. So it's really more of a timing issue, right? So we look at all of these different things. EV market. How many vehicles are going to be turning electric? How many of those vehicles are going to be changing from a steel structure to an aluminum structure? Look at a company like Ford taking their iconic F-150 and making the doors aluminum and the frame aluminum and the bumpers aluminum and more parts of it are aluminum, making the car lighter, increasing fuel efficiency. And a lot of these fuel efficient cars and a lot of these fuel efficient movements that we're going towards are going to involve more aluminum. Now, the grades of aluminum are going to vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but one thing we do know, it is going to be needed. And as more electric vehicles go on the road, more gas vehicles will get pulled off the road, and more scrap will be produced, leading to things like like catalytic converters continuing to be scrapped. Now, funny that we're on the catalytic converter subject, as rrcats.com not only provides us different prices throughout the week, but can provide you prices on your catalytic converters today by going to rrcats.com. Whether you have serial numbers or pictures of your catalytic converters, make sure you remove those cats from the cars, send some clear pictures over so the team at rrcats.com can grade you today. Now, as this electrical vehicle revolution really rockets and gears up over the coming years, we're going to be looking at the catalytic converter market very differently. As we move away from gas emission cars that are going to produce these different emissions towards clean energy or renewable electric vehicles that are not producing emissions, we're going to ask the question, well, why do we need more precious metals? Why do we need rhodium, platinum, palladium out of these catalytic converters? Now, I'm really happy that you asked that question, because what we're going to be looking at is more high-powered energy sources being built. For instance, in our weekly report this week, we talked about the energy and where it's produced. Coal versus nuclear, nuclear versus gas, and all of these different things have emissions, and they need to have those emissions offset somehow. So as more precious metals come in from these catalytic converter purchases, more clean emissions and more clean vehicles like the Mack trucks of the world that have these big diesel filters. You know, think about 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You saw plumes of black smoke billowing out of these large tractor trailers on the road. You don't see that anymore. Yeah, you might see a few of the old school ones where the guy just doesn't want to part with his vehicle, but the newer vehicles are powered by natural gas. They have a diesel particulate filter, also known as a DPF, that uses something called DEF, pours it in and helps get rid of those black smoke, gets rid of those plumes that were out there. It dissipates those. And these are positive reasons to get these precious metals in to help the vehicles that most likely will never or for a long time turn to electric. Helps clean the environment, which is where we're looking to go long term. But of course, things that people don't look at, the amount of fuel that it costs to pull and mine these cobalt-based alloys from the ground. It's really hard. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of money, and that, of course, you know, we're not the US government, we can't just keep printing it. So, you know, these companies have to run on budgets to be able to look at all these things, but as we look at macro point of views, you're going to learn more about the markets overall. Now, scrappers, we want to hear your tips, we want to hear your tricks, and we want to tell you things that you want to hear. In our upcoming podcast that's going to be released this Friday or Saturday, we're going to share with you not only the history of the iScrap app, but different scrapping stories that are going to help you get a different perspective and even give you different ideas on where the markets were, are, and could be. Before we wrap things up, we have another question.
We're not live. April Fools!
Oh, that was a good one.
We do have a question though.
Oh, okay. I'd love to see my face reaction because I thought I was doing a really good job. Ready.
Why do, Michael asked, why do scrapyards...
Flash is on.
That's okay.
Okay.
Why do scrapyards ask not to crush aluminum cans?
Sure. So one of the questions that, you know, really good joke, one of the questions about aluminum cans that we have been asked is why those scrapyards want them whole. And believe it or not, there's a really great answer. A lot of people stink. And they put dirt and cigarette butts and sand, and when they crush them down and you flip it over, none of those things fall out. But a can that normally, I believe it takes 12 aluminum cans to make 1 pound. So if you take those 12 cans and you fill them with a 1/4 pound or 1/2 pound of dirt, you're able to steal from the scrapyard, and that's the opposite of what we want. So scrapyards that get these cans in, they want to pick a whole bag up, one of those big black contractor bags of aluminum cans. It shouldn't weigh more than 15 pounds. Once you throw it on the scale and it's really heavy, they're going to have a problem with you. From there, they've probably had previous experiences where they take those aluminum cans when the problem customers and they kick them out. And these are some of the stories that we want to share with you through our podcast coming out this weekend. Scrappers, this is Tom from the iScrap app. Today's Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. We appreciate you tuning in, whether it's live or recorded. We look forward to your comments. We look forward to helping you make more money with scrap. But until next week, I'll scrap you later.